I still remember the exact sound my wristband made when it buzzed that night, a sharp vibration that pulled me out of half-sleep and straight into panic. The camera feed lit up on my tablet, and my stomach dropped. There she was, crawling through my laundry room window, white blouse catching the glow of the infrared, a bundle of zip ties clutched in her fist like she was ready to bag evidence. Or worse. This wasn't some stranger either. This was Valerie Knight, the president of our HOA, the woman who had spent years making my life and my son's life a slow burn of misery. And now she was in my house while my 10-year-old boy was asleep just down the hall. In that instant, everything I had built, all the sleepless nights wiring sensors and coding automations, all the drills I'd run with my kid until he could do them half asleep, it all became real. My name's Evan Cole. I'm an IT guy by trade, a widower by cruel luck, and a single dad by choice. Ever since my wife Rachel passed, the silence in this house has been unbearable, so I filled it with something. Wires, steel shutters, cameras, alarms. Not because I wanted to live in a fortress, but because Valerie wouldn't leave me or my son alone. First it was petty. Fines for a basketball hoop an inch too close to the sidewalk. Letters because the grass was a fraction too long. Warnings about the color of our trash bins. I thought I could ignore it. But then came the intimidation. Standing outside my yard scribbling notes for an hour. Anonymous calls to child services claiming I couldn't cope as a single dad. Police showing up on Friday nights because she reported loud disturbances when it was just me and my boy watching a movie. Every time I tried to connect the dots, authorities shrugged it off as a civil matter. That's when I realized me and my son were on our own. I did what I knew how to do. I built a system. Hidden shutters that could seal us in. Silent sensors. Fog machines that could fill the air with harmless but blinding mist. UV gel on the latches so I could prove exactly who touched what. It wasn't about hurting anyone. It was about evidence. Because without proof, Valerie could spin every situation into her favor. That night, the code on my watch flashed. Laundry window breach. I patted across the hardwood, every creak memorized. I stopped at Max's door, placed my palm flat, knocked twice. He answered just like we practiced. Click of the deadbolt, lights out, into the closet. He called it the game. My heart twisted because no kid should have to live like that. But at the same time, pride welled up because he followed the plan perfectly. I whispered to Rachel in my head, "Watch over him," then turned back to the tablet. Valerie slid inside with the ease of someone who'd done it before. Dark jeans, ex-cop swagger still in her step, and when she pulled out a lockpick kit for the kitchen door, I felt the chill all the way through my bones. This wasn't about grass height or mailboxes anymore. The zip ties in her hand told me exactly what she was prepared to do. I stepped out of the shadow. "That's far enough, Valerie." Her flashlight jerked. "Who's there?" she snapped, trying to inject authority into her voice like she was still wearing a badge. "It's Evan," I said evenly. "And you're in my house. And you're on camera." She stammered something about emergency inspection for a water leak. At 2:16 in the morning. With lockpicks. I stayed calm, though inside I was boiling. I held up the tablet, thumb hovering over the lock icon, then pressed it. The house came alive, steel shutters slamming down over every window, a metallic heartbeat echoing through the walls. Her face shifted from smug to panicked. Fog hissed from the vents, swallowing her flashlight beam, wrapping her in white blindness. She stumbled, coughed, smeared UV gel across the doorknob she'd picked. "Perfect evidence. You can't trap me," she screamed. "You trapped yourself." I answered, my voice rolling back at her through the haze. For a moment I wavered. Standing there watching her flail, I asked myself if I had gone too far. Maybe I had become the paranoid widower, turning a home into a bunker. Rachel loved sunlight, open windows, neighbors who smiled instead of locked gates. Would she hate what I'd done to our house? And then, faint through the fog of doubt, I heard Max's whisper on the walkie we used during drills. "Dad, still good." Just those words steadied me. No, I wasn't overreacting. I was protecting him. And if I didn't stand firm tonight, Valerie would never stop so I hit the siren. 10 seconds of piercing shriek ripped through the neighborhood. Porch lights flicked on, blinds parted, neighbors stepped onto lawns. Witnesses, exactly what I needed. I opened the front shutter, stepped out onto the porch with my camera raised. My voice carried. "The intruder is inside. I am requesting state police." Officer Carter from local PD arrived first, his flashlight lazy, his posture even lazier. Valerie had been his colleague once. I looked him dead in the eye. Conflict of interest. You wait until state arrives. Relief flashed in his eyes. He didn't want to be in this mess either. Inside, Valerie was still thrashing in the fog, yelling at neighbors to back down, claiming she had implied consent. Someone from across the street shouted back, "Implied by who, your clipboard?" Laughter, bitter and long suppressed, rippled through the crowd. Her authority cracked right there. Then the state troopers arrived, Whitaker and Diaz, body cams blinking. I raised my hands, narrated every detail. Intruder identified as Valerie Knight. UV dye present on latch and knob. They shined the black light, and her hands glowed an eerie purple. The look on her face then, that mask of control sliding right off, was something I'll never forget. Whitaker read her rights. Diaz snapped the cuffs, and Valerie shrieked at the crowd, "You'll regret this." But nobody believed her anymore. Phones were out. Neighbors shook their heads. The predator had become the prey. And just when she thought that was the end, I showed Detective Monroe the final piece. A violation notice I'd returned with a tracker embedded. It had logged her movements for weeks, circling backyards at 3 in the morning, loitering near houses she'd targeted, daily pings from a storage unit 5 miles away. The warrant came down quick. What they found inside chilled me. A giant map of our neighborhood, pins of red and yellow, files on families, mortgage data, kids' schedules, even my late wife's obituary printed and circled. Blank arrest templates, recordings of conversations, notes on who was vulnerable to what. Immigration, debt, children. Under children, my name was circled 3 times. Valerie wasn't just power tripping. She was running a full intimidation racket out of an HOA presidency. The community meeting after that was packed. Standing room only. The board tried to shuffle papers, but neighbors shouted, "Let Evan speak." I didn't even take the podium. I just plugged in my laptop, hit play. The footage filled the screen. Valerie crawling through my window, zip ties in hand. Me confronting her, shutters slamming, fog rolling. Gasps, then silence, and then the testimonies poured out. Mrs. Patel, voice trembling. She threatened child services on me. Mr. Grant, leaning on his cane. She tried to lean my house for a crack in the driveway I've had 40 years. Nora Hale held up a black light and showed the same glow on her doorknob. One by one, voices rose, stories swallowed for years finally spoken. The board paled. They realized this wasn't one cranky neighbor. It was a rebellion that I asked for Valerie's immediate removal and a full handover of records to state police. The vote was unanimous. The gavel hit the table like a coffin nail. No applause, no cheers, just a heavy silence. The kind that means something has truly shifted. For the first time, Valerie wasn't in control. She wasn't even in the room. She was in a cell that I walked out without shaking hands, without smiling, letting the silence carry the message. Sometimes silence says more than celebration says, "Oh, that's how a widower and his 10-year-old son turned a house into the one trap Valerie Knight couldn't escape." How a whole neighborhood finally saw the truth. And how I learned that doubt doesn't mean weakness. It means you're human, and you fight anyway. That if there's one lesson I hope sticks, it's this. Power without proof is just bullying. But proof is what brings justice. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Was I right to build the system, or did I go too far? Do HOAs really serve their communities? Or are they just cover for control freaks who like pushing neighbors around? Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you stand, and if you've ever dealt with a neighbor or HOA gone off the rails. I read every single story you leave, and I know this one's going to spark some strong opinions.